You made it to the end of the show. Hope we haven't overstayed our welcome. But we're gonna talk about the endings of games before they're forgotten. On Spoiled Rotten.
That's a sweet set of pipes that kid's got.
Talented young man.
Sweet set of pipes. Thank you, Griffin McElroy, for the lovely introduction. Alan Wake, let's rap about it, guys. The ending.
I forgot. It's been like a year. It's been like it's been 100 years.
It's an island. They're dead on the island. No, it's purgatory. I don't know. So it's not a lake, it's an ocean, Justin. ...
Yep.
Dot.
It's just something we already said.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything.
It's
not a lake. It's a one-shot release that is not getting a sequel. So the whatever mystery is within there is kind of irrelevant because it's over, Johnny. It's over.
I'm hopeful that we're getting 2 DLC episodes. Right? It's only gonna be 2, right? Just 2.
Two announced, but I mean, I'm assuming that if it blows up,
it's just 2.
It's just 2.
So, but the 2 they do continue directly from the ending. So
yeah, it's just more episodes.
All right. So at the end of Alan Wake, you he's
you fight the evil general.
Fight the evil general. God Christ, I really don't remember. Why did we wait so long?
So I'll tell you what happens. Ready?
Okay.
He gets the clicker. Do you remember the clicker with Thomas Zane?
Right.
Thomas Zane, a writer in the town of Bright Falls,
voiced by Max Payne.
Who took a kind of reawakened this ancient darkness. There was a woman named Barbara Jagger. She is the kind of dark presence that you see over and over again.
Oh, that's a play on Baba Yaga.
Baba Yaga.
Baba Yaga.
I don't know what Baba Yaga is.
I did not know that.
What's Baba Yaga? Somebody gonna tell me?
She's like a witch.
I didn't know that.
It's some culture
in Slavic folklore. Yeah, I guess
Does Baba Yaga have? See, I was thinking Baba Yaga is in Quest for Glory. So that's the only reason I mean,
it's like a well-known archetype.
The name of Baba Yaga is comprised of 2 elements. Baba means old woman or grandmother. And the second element, Yaga, is related to Lithuanian for lazy bones or sluggard.
I'm interested why Sam always writes evil female villains. He seems because that was the villain in Max Payne 1 was an evil woman.
Thanks for the spoiler.
What?
You're allowed to have spoilers.
And Mona Sachs, she was kind of evil.
Thanks for the spoiler again. Guess what? Darth Vader is Luke's father. How do you like that?
Guys, you're killing me.
So anyway, Barbara Jagger is so he writes her into existence, or he writes her back. She died, and he writes her back.
That's what Thomas Zane does, right?
That's what Thomas Zane does.
But he doesn't realize that being in that on that lake gives creative types, the power to warp reality.
Right. And so now he's written her back, but what he's really done is he's given the dark presence a form. So, what comes back isn't really Barbara Jagger, but it's this dark presence. And that is what Alan Wake confronts when he gets there. She recognizes the sense of another creative force on the island.
And she tries to manipulate him into writing her out, basically. Writing her escape. But he posits it like a story where he's the protagonist and he kind of, uses that to turn the tables on her a little bit.
Right. It's a very meta situation. And when you get towards the end of the story and Alan starts to realize what's going on, and he's writing this in himself, as he goes, you start to realize, and that's what the manuscript pages are, right? These are things that he had already written. He's already done most of this work, he's reliving it and following the role that he already wrote himself into. At the end, so he goes back to the cabin. He has the clicker now. He uses the clicker on Barbara Jagger, and then the whole house becomes engulfed with light. He goes and starts writing. He says he knows what the ending is now.
But he's already written an ending in the sense that he wins and his wife gets out, but he's still trapped in this cabin writing because the story has to keep going.
Right. And that's the only way. So that's kind of where he's stuck. And when he says it's not a lake, it's an ocean, I think he's talking about, they keep talking about this lake. And for me, it was more about like the potential, right? Where the lake was kind of finite. The game was over, but it's not a lake, it's an ocean. And then there's a period as if it's over, and then the period turns into an ellipsis, like it keeps going. And so part of it is that, the game will keep continuing. That's obviously the kind of most obvious part. But it's also a part of it that, like, Alan is stuck there. He has a much bigger journey ahead of him. Not in terms of the DLC, just in terms of that being, even if that was a final ending, that, which is kind of a grim ending, that it's not over, that he has a lot of, work ahead of him.
Right. And the implication is there's a much bigger scale to the events, right? Like, it's not just that lake that's the problem.
Right. It's something.
Like there's something bigger behind the scenes, maybe, which is why it's an ocean. Or, maybe it's because the ocean of stars is reflected in the lake.
Yeah, maybe it's talking about space.
Which means
maybe
aliens.
Maybe the
aliens
dark
are coming
is from
to Bright
space.
Falls.
That would be something.
You heard it here first, folks.
I'm on board with that.
So yeah, the whole part where you start to find out about Thomas Zane, and you start to, read about him and hear about him, and you see, there's like, you get to that one house, and there's like stuff written on the walls about Thomas Zane, and you get to the woman who protects the clicker, Cynthia Weaver, in the well-lit room. And the clicker is also something that Alan wrote in, because it's something from his childhood. So it's not clear, or at least not clear to me, is the clicker, it was left by Thomas Zane, but it was also something that you saw earlier from Alan's childhood.
I'd like to know what the radius is of, like, when you write something here. Like,
right.
Can you affect anything in the world? Like,
because it's a weird. You're not exactly sure what happened, because it kind of sounds in the story like Thomas Zane wrote the part
that he wrote
the clicker.
Alan Wake's childhood. So is Alan Wake brought into existence because Thomas Zane wrote him?
Right. Is Thomas Zane still writing? I mean, is it still him?
Right. I don't know. Man,
these and many other questions we won't get answers to.
Not until
I've got
there's
two questions
more
for you.
episodes.
Two questions. Number one, the people that are involved in this story that are not Alan Wake, like Barry and
how awesome is Barry, by the way?
Barry's a great character.
But so when
you
Alan,
think it's going to be terrible at first.
When Alan writes that Barry comes to Bright Falls, is there like a Barry made in Bright Falls, like someone that just kind of comes into existence to play that role, or is the actual Barry in the real world suddenly compelled? Like, is it a form of mind control, or is just making new characters?
Oh, you mean like the presence?
Like, is the real
island
Barry like suddenly controlled by the writing and he comes to Bright Falls, or is this just like a figment of his imagination?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think the former. I think the former, that he's compelled to come there. I think a lot of the game is playing in the same way that games like BioShock did, playing with the concepts. I wish I remembered more about this. I studied some of this early American philosophy, which a lot of it dealt with the concepts of free will and predetermination. But a lot of it seems to be implying that there's some kind of predetermination here. And, putting the writer in the role of some godlike form. I mean, that's a concept that's been discussed in a lot of literature, right? That the writer is God. They create out of nothing. But it seems to very much be implying that, yes, that in this situation, things that are written predetermine characters' outcomes. So Alan's actions are predetermined by what he himself wrote. But maybe all those actions are predetermined by what Tom Zane is still writing. And it gives it a very kind of meta, very theoretical, maybe even very philosophical kind of feeling to it, which definitely gives it that sort of Twin Peaks and Lost type of vibe, where you can kind of tell that. What's that?
Who is Mr. Scratch?
So we talked about that before, and I looked up. I don't remember.
Like, people can't actually say his name. Like, when you hear it in the game, when people say it, there's a scratching sound when they want to say his name. Like, everyone just hears a scratching sound.
I thought that Mr. Scratch was the real Alan Wake. By which I mean that there couldn't, in the places where Alan Wake, the story character, and Alan Wake, the writer, in places where their stories would kind of intersect.
It's like time cop rules.
Yeah, logically, he couldn't be in the same place as him. So he's Mr. Scratch. So his name would be scratched out, or he's the guy scratching out the story. Either way you want to look at it.
Or what if he's like a character that's kind of like remained from stuff that Alan Wake just aborted? Like he didn't, like his rough draft almost.
Yeah. I mean, that Mr. Scratch's presence definitely seems sort of vestigial enough that maybe he was a bigger part of the story at some point.
Reading about it really quickly online, the consensus seems to be that Mr. Scratch is a version of Alan Wake.
Yeah.
That seems to be what most of the foreign consensus is here.
Yeah.
So Mr. Scratch is said to be the one that will return to all of Alan's friends. It's like, who's the one that goes home if Alan stays there?
All right, so I guess to obscure the fact that he's gone in the real world, he made Mr. Scratch. But why isn't Mr. Scratch waiting for Alice then? When she gets out?
I don't know.
So weird.
This guy surmises that on GameSpot surmises that I always get those confused, that Mr. Scratch will be the protagonist in the DLC, since Alan is predisposed.
That'd be weird. So that's Alan Wake.
If anybody has good theories, if you've played, let us know. I'd be interested to hear some of your theories. Any good ones? Maybe we'll do another little Spoiled Rotten at the end and talk about some of your theories.
This is definitely the sort of game where I think I'll probably play it again. I feel like maybe
for
in a year.
Yeah, I'm letting a friend borrow it right now, but I'm looking forward to playing it again.
Well, the DLC is this month, isn't it? July 27th.
End of the month. Woo!
Pretty exciting. Woo! It'll have a new licensed song at the end too.
Ooh, delicious.
And really, guys, rent it or buy it or do something. It's a really great game.
Well, don't listen to this and now get it. The people who are listening to this hopefully do have the game.
Okay, so people that have already listened to this. So for you people, buy the DLC. Show Microsoft that there's
even if you don't have the game, just download it from the marketplace.
Yeah, tell your friends to buy it.
Yeah.
All right,
kids. Well, thank you for listening and hanging out with us, the Joystiq crew. And
crank it up.
Yeah. Thanks. Bye.
Bye, guys.